Coming up on the Q30 Newscast, more breaking news from student government. We sat down with Chris Montalvo on why he stepped down from his position.
Also, 4 days after a triple transformer failure forced 1,600 students on the Mount Carmel campus out of their rooms, students living in the complex are now without heat.
And the most anticipated sporting event of the year, men's hockey versus Yale, is only 3 days away.
Next on the Q30 Newscast.
Live from Studio 125, this is the Q30 Newscast.
Good evening and welcome to the Q30 Newscast. I'm Krista Delane.
And I'm Kyle Lavasser. We begin tonight with breaking news out of student government. The now former sophomore class president, Christopher Montalvo, has stepped down from his position following a conduct issue.
Christina Vita sat down with Montalvo for his perspective on the events that have occurred over the last 5 weeks.
The thing that kind of hurt me throughout this all is, like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have differences and opinions, but just because someone disagrees with your opinion, that they shouldn't be dehumanized, they shouldn't be treated as if they're not. And I did feel that throughout. I felt like people looked at me like I was the devil, which I'm not. I'm very, very gentle. I have feelings, and I just didn't think people had regard for that. And that came from some members inside SGA, which I think is an internal conflict which needs to be figured out, which I think it will be.
Montalvo also talked about why he decided to step down from his position.
Part of the reason I also stepped down on Monday was because I knew that I was going to have to step down regardless, and the timeliness of it seems wrong, but at the end I felt it was right because I could have sat through Wednesday and gone through the hearings, but I already know in the back of my mind that I was going to be kicked off SGA essentially, so I didn't feel it worth the time of the student government to go through that and have the media there and have the distractions and have to have people rehear what I said and just everything. I felt it was in the best interest of everyone to just not have that hearing at all, because at the end of the day, maybe a week later, I would have had to step down anyway due to conduct, so I decided to just do it yesterday.
The Student Government Association held another one of its Your Voice, Our Quinnipiac events on Monday night. Two other organizations, the National Alliance on Mental Health and the Gender Sexuality Alliance, sponsored the event, which was focused on mental wellness. Beverly Wakiaga has the story.
Lights were dimmed and the fire was lit in the piazza as students shared their personal experiences with balancing school, work, and their mental health in this month's Your Voice, Our Quinnipiac event that focused on the mind, body, and soul.
Really happy that we did get to have the event today, because I feel like mental illness isn't really spoken about in general because of such a strong stigma that we have nowadays.
SGA sponsored the event with the Gender and Sexuality Alliance, the Student Veteran Organization, and the National Alliance on Mental Illness to raise awareness on wellness. During the event, the sponsors raffled off Yale tickets and a relaxation basket filled with items to help students cope with the everyday stresses of life.
Honestly, I loved the fact that it was more conversational and more open, and people really got up there and were brave and shared deep-rooted experiences.
Interested students were encouraged to get up on stage and share not only their stories, but ways of coping with the various stresses of school. Some students had no intention of speaking, but were inspired to as the night progressed.
And I had no idea what I was going to say, but I'm glad we came. I hope we touched someone in the audience.
This is the second Your Voice, Our Quinnipiac event. After the first one raised uproar following the remarks of former sophomore class president Chris Montalvo, we spoke to SGA Vice President of Student Experience, Tatiana Yusuf, about her hopes for the event.
The best people can do for anything controversial would just be asking the uncomfortable questions.
SGA plans to hold more of these open mic style events once a month next semester. For Q30 News, I'm Beverly Wakiaga.
The search for a new Quinnipiac University president has been narrowed down. The updated candidates vying for the job come from a pool of over 150 applications. Spencer Stewart contacted about 100 prospects, 19 of which were deemed high potential by Stewart and the search committee. Of those 19 people, 9 met for first-round interviews. Now only 2 women and 3 men remain, which the search committee hopes to narrow down before January.
A triple transformer failure caused the Commons, the Village, and the Hill to all lose power this past weekend, which forced 1,600 students out of their rooms. The Bobcat Den and Student Health Services were also affected. Luckily, a few hours into the ordeal, nearly half of the students were able to return to their rooms when an emergency generator kicked on in Commons. The university emergency management team set up mattresses in Burt Kahn Court for students to sleep, and Residential Life relocated other students to empty beds on York Hill on Saturday. Power was restored to the Hill and most of Village. However, the fire had destroyed one of the transformers beyond repair and fried the power lines underground. So students in 3 Village buildings were not able to return to their rooms until Sunday evening. Power was completely restored at 3:39 to the Mount Carmel campus on Sunday afternoon. And with the power back on, the heat is off in Complex. Beginning today, students living there are using electric space heaters to warm up their rooms because 2 of the 4 boilers in the building have failed. The school provided a statement which reads in part, "Facilities recently discovered that 2 of the 4 original boilers servicing the complex, Baki, Founders, and Salem, have failed and parts are no longer available. While we are able to maintain heat to the complex with 2 boilers during current weather conditions, we cannot wait until winter break to replace them as the system would not be able to maintain heat to the building once temperatures are constantly below freezing." According to the school, all 4 boilers should be replaced by the time students return from Thanksgiving break.
Well, Krista, I'm sure the students that lost power this past weekend know just how cold this weather's been here in Hamden.
It has been very cold here in Hamden. Carrie, what can we expect for this week's weather leading into the Thanksgiving break?
Hey guys, I am out here on the quad tonight in front of Sleeping Giant. You know, it's a little cold out here right now, but will it be warmer going into Thanksgiving and Black Friday next week? Tune in later for my full weather forecast to find out.
Thank you, Carrie. Coming up, a unique collaboration between film students and law enforcement.
And another deadly shooting in California. Katie O'Keefe is here with updates on that and more in the National News Update. We'll be right back.
Coming up on #that, we talk about some fun events around Quinnipiac's campus.
And we talk about some weird news that's been discussed around Twitter.
All that and more, we are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
Whether you're on the quad, in your room,
or heading to class,
tune in to Q30 News.
For stories by student journalists you can trust.
We are covering the latest here on campus and in surrounding areas. Get the news you need to know every Wednesday night.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. QCash is accepted.
Now that's a sandwich.
The Gender and Sexuality Alliance and Women in Support of Humanity held a sexual education event on Monday night. The event included raffles of sex toys, and sociology professor Lauren Sardi spoke at the event. Christina Vitas has more.
Gender and Sexuality Alliance and the Women in Support of Humanity organizations teamed up to put on their annual Let's Get It On event Monday night in the Mount Carmel Auditorium. The event was focused on getting students comfortable with talking and learning about sex.
From our inability to talk about sex, we run into a lot of problems. You have domestic violence, sexual assault, and a lot of other issues that are kind of plaguing our country at the moment.
Professor of Sociology Lauren Sardi provided a fun and informative presentation on sex education, and after conducted an anonymous question and answer session for students.
I think people really like it, and it really kind of normalizes sex.
It's a really great thing to do every year. I've come every year because it's just a really fun event and it's really informative.
What brought most students out to the event was the door prize raffle of various sex toys, contraceptives, and more. But just last month, the Residence Hall Council also hosted their own sex ed event called Sex and Candy and advertised a similar raffle of sex toys. However, Residential Life pulled the prizes from the event due to a complaint from a parent while on a tour.
We're organizations that are really focused on making sex more of a comfortable topic, and I think even if we did get a complaint, we would have went through with it because we think it is an important thing that all students need to know.
The annual Let's Get It On event had students leaving with answered questions, plenty of laughs, and maybe a raffle prize or two. For Q30 News, Christina Vitas.
Senior film students had the opportunity to team up with the Hampden Police Department to create PSAs for the community.
Usually for senior film students, we recreate a scene from our freshman year, and then we do it again our senior year. So instead of that, we teamed up with Hampden Police in order to create these PSAs. I was the director of Stranger Danger, so what I did is that I covered the dangers of walking home alone and being left home alone and what to do in situations where there's somebody that you're really not comfortable with or do not know approaches you.
They created several videos about safety, with each focusing on a different situation that may occur and how to keep yourself out of harm's way.
Quinnipiac's new Catholic Chapel and Center for Religion building is up and running. The university held a ribbon-cutting ceremony last night, which included remarks from President Leahy and Reverend Jordan Lenahan. The building includes office space, a lounge, conference room, kitchen assembly room, and Catholic chapel.
This week is International Education Week. Through Career Development Services, Quinnipiac students were given the opportunity to sign up for passports. They could also attend an information session to learn more about international internships and studying abroad. Q30's Carrie Golden has the story.
This past week, Quinnipiac University held its annual International Education Week. Several different groups on campus, such as the Career Development Offices and the Department of Global and Cultural Engagement, put on events during the week for students to engage in. A few of the events included looking at international internships and studying abroad.
You know, it's a nice time, I feel like, right before Thanksgiving to sort of celebrate this week and be able to connect with our students and provide the opportunity to have this sort of exchange worldwide. And that's what International Education Week is really all about, to have those sort of opportunities.
All of the departments participating in International Education Week hope students will find some benefits to the seminars as well.
In my view, it's all about the resume and how well you stand out when you're on an interview. Global internship, especially for School of Business, I feel it's extremely important to gain cultural differences, to know how to communicate within the business world internationally, and to have an experience working on different teams, which is very big in the United States.
Students were also given the opportunity to reapply or even apply for a passport right at the university.
Hopefully this is the start. We've been to other colleges where we've been back second, third time, and we've seen a lot more students come to those events. We're hoping that individuals do come to see us, even if they just want to ask questions about passports.
The biggest event that was held during the week was Culture Night, where all international students, multicultural organizations, and any student that wanted to represent their culture could share information.
It's really fun and really engaging with anyone who's coming. So we're taking over the whole Student Center this year, which I'm super excited about. We have about 15 student tables, as well as some faculty and staff who are involved.
Some of the other events during the week included a training on undocumented citizens and an event called The Place at the Table, to help students understand who we are and what identity we take on when going abroad. Reporting from the Piazza, Kerry Golden, Q30 News.
The Ireland's Great Hunger Museum is under new control. Ryan Mahoney has taken over as executive director of the museum. One of Mahoney's goals is to have more Quinnipiac students visit the museum. Located on Whitney Ave, the museum is open from Wednesday to Sunday and offers free public tours. Q30's Sarah Russell has more.
Ireland's Great Hunger Museum, located on Whitney Avenue, is part of Quinnipiac University, but many students have never even been inside. Ryan Mahoney has recently been appointed the executive director of the museum.
My background prior to coming to Quinnipiac, I was the executive director of the Irish American Heritage Museum in Albany, New York. I spent 4 years there, basically running all the operations that you can imagine there. We increased our visitation, increased membership by over 1,000%, and really turned the institution into one that was making money instead of losing money yearly.
With his background of working in museums, Ryan Mahoney wants to make Ireland's Great Hunger Museum a landmark at Quinnipiac University.
Making sure that students know that this is a resource for them, that they're welcome here at any time. So whether that's working with the history department, political science departments, the nursing programs, we can find some sort of objective view to how each department can use this museum. It really is a great resource for the Quinnipiac family as well as the southern Connecticut area.
And professors on campus are hoping Mahoney can increase traffic to the museum.
I think it's an opportunity to reach beyond people in Hampden, but to reach to the wider Irish American community. We have New York and Boston literally on our doorstep, so they're good starting points, but as we know, the Irish get everywhere, so just that outreach I think would be very exciting.
Mahoney has those same ideas in mind.
The museum's got a lot of goals over the next couple of years. One, obviously, to become more integrated in the students' everyday life here at Quinnipiac. We're also exploring different avenues with Irish American audiences, both locally and nationally.
Mahoney wants the museum to be a regular place students visit and encourages anyone with ideas to stop by. Sarah Russell, Q30 News.
Now joining us on the Q30 Newscast is Katie O'Keefe with National News. Katie, take it away.
Thanks, Kyle and Krista. There's a lot going on in national news this week, as many politicians are in the spotlight. First, Alabama Senator Roy Moore has been accused of a fifth person of sexual assault this past Monday morning. 56-year-old Beverly Young Nelson allegedly said the encounter happened when she was just 16 years old. Moore is currently in the running for a seat in the Senate and will not withdraw from the race, as stated in his recently posted tweet. He believes that the people of Alabama will decide this election with the hashtag #DitchMitch. But there are still many discussions and petitions in the Senate for expulsion of his spot in the race. Now on to a higher level of government. President Trump is in the process of attempting to pass his new bill on tax reform. Under the new bill, less Americans will have health coverage, but it will allow the government to spend more money on subsidized health plans. Some estimate to see more than a $3 billion increase of deficit within the next decade. Both Vice President Mike Pence and Ivanka Trump spoke at the press conference about how confident they are in the plan by saying that the repeal would help middle-income taxpayers and create a boom in the American economy. Whether the bill will be passed, we will just have to wait and see. You can catch the UCLA men's basketball team on TV this time, but not for their hoops. The team traveled to China last weekend for a charity event, but found themselves on trial after being arrested for shoplifting at a Louis Vuitton store. The three freshmen, LeAngelo Ball, Cody Riley, and Jalen Hill, were caught stealing sunglasses. President Trump met up with the Chinese president while he was overseas to ask that the students be protected from harsh punishment. No charges were given abroad, but the athletes returned to California in silence last night. The players have been suspended indefinitely as of this morning. Unfortunately, another shooting took place yesterday morning in Tehama County, California. What started out to be a neighborly dispute turned into a random rampage, which resulted in the death of 5 people throughout 7 different locations. The gunman himself is dead after a police standoff. One of the 7 locations was at a local elementary school. Luckily, teachers and staff heard the gunshots and instructed for a lockdown. One boy was shot in the foot and chest. He is currently in treatment while the families of those affected are being comforted. And that is all the time I have for National News This Week update. Kyle, Krista, back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Katie. Great work as always. After the break, Carrie Golden is here with an extended 10-day forecast for Thanksgiving break.
And later, Drew Feinberg tells us how the Quinnipiac women's rugby team performed in the quarterfinals of the NIRA playoffs. Stay tuned.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. QCash is accepted.
now that's a sandwich.
Welcome to the WQAQ Morning Show. Dan Ball and Emma Spagnolo joining you here from the QAQ studios in Hamden. And Emma, it is that time of year again.
Welcome back to the Q30 Newscast. Krista, students have broken out their winter coats this past week due to the freezing weather.
That's right, Kyle. It looks like the cold weather is here to stay. Carrie Golden has more in this week's full weather update. Carrie?
Thanks, guys. Well, let's jump right into it. I am out here on the quad, and it is a whopping 38 degrees here in Hamden. Tomorrow, it is going to warm up, though. It's going to be 50 degrees, and then tomorrow night, it is going to be 44 degrees. Let's look at the other areas right around Hamden, right around Quinnipiac University here. In Danbury, it is 47 degrees. In Torrington, it is 35. Hartford is 36 degrees, so everything's right around our area. In New Haven, it's 42. In Killingly, it is 34. And in New London, it is 39 degrees. So let's take a look at that 7-day forecast, see what it's going to be like going into Thanksgiving next week. So looking ahead to tomorrow, it's going to be 53 degrees. That is going to be the warmest all week. So make sure, you dress appropriately. Not too hot, not too cold, with a low of 35. Friday, if you're heading home, it's going to be 46 degrees with a low of 28. So definitely, if you're staying, keep those winter clothes here. Saturday and Sunday, it will be fairly nice for the winter weather. It'll be 52 degrees on Saturday with a low of 48, and on Sunday, it'll be 50 with a low of 31. Now, Monday and Tuesday, again, if you're staying here, it's going to get a little bit colder, but stay relatively nice for our winter weather. On Monday, it's going to be 46 degrees with a low of 29. On Tuesday, it'll be 51 with a low of 39. And let's even look ahead going into the days leading up to Thanksgiving. Now, next Wednesday, it'll be a 48-degree temperature with a low of 32. And on Thanksgiving Day, it looks like it's going to be 42 degrees with a low of 30. And Black Friday, if you're one of those people that like to get out there and get shopping, well, make sure you dress warm because it will be 44 degrees with a low of 32. And on Saturday, it'll be 46 degrees with a low of 34. That's all I have for your weekly weather update. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And back to Kyle and Krista at the desk.
Thanks, Carrie. Krista, it looks like the annual Levasseur family football game won't be rained out this year. Let's hope that Carrie's forecast looks right. But moving on, one former Bachelorette contestant has a new man in her life.
And a 6-time Olympic gold medalist speaks out about the abuse she endured from USA Gymnastics former team doctor. Olivia Schuler has more on this week's Entertainment Report.
Thanks, guys. We begin this week's report with a prominent athlete speaking out about her sexual assault. 6-time gold medalist Aly Raisman called Team USA doctor Larry Nassar a monster. Last Friday on the Today Show, the 23-year-old gymnast openly accused Nassar of sexually abusing her 8 years ago. Nassar faces 22 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Ali said, quote, "He was such a master manipulator, and I think that's what's important for people to understand, that these monsters are so good at manipulating you. You are so brainwashed. I thought he was so nice," end quote. Nassar has yet to comment on Raisman's allegations. On a lighter note, former Bachelorette Emily Maynard has delivered her third baby boy. Maynard has appeared on The Bachelorette and Bachelor, but both times ended with the couples calling it quits. Maynard's love life came full circle when she wed Tyler Johnson back in 2014. The new parents have 2 children, 2-year-old Jennings Tyler and 11-month-old Gibson Kyle. Maynard also has 12-year-old Ricky from a previous relationship. As well as sharing photos of the new baby, the couple asked for help naming him. Congratulations to the new family. In other good news, Jordan Sparks is married and expecting her first child. American Idol winner Jordan Sparks announced Tuesday she had eloped Dana Isaiah back in July. The newlyweds also recently announced that they are expecting their first child. Sparks did not reveal the sex of the baby to people, but she did say, "This is the best part so far." The singer continued by saying, "I have Dana and I have this little one, and I have a new family. I'm the most content I've ever been in my life." Congrats to the pop singer. Well, the wait is over. Taylor Swift's 6th album, Reputation, was released this past Friday. Just days later, pop singer announced 27 tour dates in North America. Taylor Swift tweeted, "We'll see you soon," creating immense excitement for fans everywhere. The tour begins next year in May and ends on October 6th in Texas. More tour dates are going to be announced for the UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. That's all the entertainment news I have for this week. Back to Krista and Kyle at the desk.
Thanks, Olivia. Coming up next on the Q30 Newscast, Drew Feinberg gives us the latest on all Quinnipiac sports.
And we take a look into the most exciting matchup of the year, the Quinnipiac versus Yale men's hockey game. We'll be right back.
Hello, and tonight on Sandwich News, we will determine what makes a good sandwich and a bad sandwich. First, the standard sandwich. Uninspired, and frankly, a little gross. But we have here a Ray and Mike sandwich, the Cadillac of sandwiches. And if you want one, well,
come on down to Ray and Mike's at 3030 Whitney Ave, Hamden, Connecticut. Open every day from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. QCash is accepted.
Now that's a sandwich.
This is Sports Pause.
Are you concerned with the 0-2 start for this team?
Right here, top of the circle, again, rips it past the Jasper goalie.
What will breaking the record mean for the program himself? I mean, 138 wins.
There's the tough shot. What a nice play by Mikey Dixon.
He's good in transition. Just a really dynamic scorer he can create for himself.
And now, Emma, it's time for the top 5 plays of the week.
Coming up on #that, we talk about some fun events around Quinnipiac's campus.
And we talk about some weird news that's been discussed around Twitter.
All that and more, we are your source for Quinnipiac's entertainment news.
It's one of the best times of the year in college sports. While hockey and basketball are starting their seasons, fall sports are making playoff runs.
Drew Feinberg has the latest on how the Bobcats did this past week.
Krista, Kyle, thank you. It was a busy week for Quinnipiac sports. Both basketball teams opened up their 2017-2018 campaign this past weekend. But let's begin with a couple of fall sports who took the field this past week. The volleyball team closed out its regular season with a 3-1 loss to Niagara on Sunday afternoon. However, the Bobcats still secured the number 6 seed in the MAC tournament. The tournament begins this Friday at Fairfield University. The Bobcats will take on third-seeded Iona in the first round on Friday at 5 p.m. Quinnipiac has lost the last 2 matchups this season versus Iona. The men's soccer team looked to extend its season last Thursday as the Bobcats faced the Stags of Fairfield in the MAC semifinals. The game went the distance as it took a penalty shootout to decide the winner. After the first round of penalty kicks, the two sides were tied at 1 apiece. However, Fairfield nailed 2 of its next 4. With the game on the line, freshman Simon Hillinger stepped up and was denied by goalkeeper Gordon Botterill. Fairfield would move on to eventually win the MAC championship, and the Bobcats were sent home disappointed. The men's basketball team started a new era on Saturday as the new head coach Baker Dunleavy looked to pick up his first win against Dartmouth. Let's take the highlight and see if the Bobcats would start the season off on the right foot. Starting off in the first half, Jillian Smith is going to drive to the rack and get the and one. Dartmouth ties the game at 5 early. Later on in the first half, Jacob Rigoni from downtown. He has 8 points in the first half for the freshman. Now in the second half, Rich Kelly is going to find Rigoni, who's going to find Andrew Robinson, who's going to drain it from the corner. And now Dartmouth, with only 20 seconds left, is going to find Chris Knight, who's going to get the roll with 15 seconds left. Next possession, Rich Kelly's going to take it down the court for the Bobcats, drive to the lane, and Knight is going to trip Kelly. He's going to go to the line, miss the first one, but on the second one, the freshman is money. The Quinnipiac takes a 1-point lead with 2 seconds left. Dartmouth, one chance, but Chase Daniels says no thank you. And Quinnipiac will go on to win 78-76. And now switching things to the women's side, Trisha Fabry and her squad opened up the season on the road in Iowa as the team took on Iowa in 16th ranked Missouri. In QU's first game against Iowa, the Bobcats kept it close for most of the game, only being down 1 after the third. However, Iowa went on a run in the fourth to win the game 83-67. The team's next matchup against a ranked team did not go as well as it did in the NCAA tournament last year. The Bobcats failed to take a lead throughout the game, eventually falling 66-51. And now finally, don't forget to tune in this Saturday as Q30 presents Bobcat Game Day, live from in studio and at the TD Bank Sports Center, as the men's ice hockey team hosts in-state rival Yale. Follow Q30 on all social media for updates on the event and more information on how to watch. That's all from me, Krista, Kyle. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Drew. Well, that's all we have for this week. For updates on SGA and other Quinnipiac news, visit our website at q30tv.com and follow us on Twitter at Q30 Television and at Q30 News.
For all of us here at Q30, thank you for tuning in to tonight's newscast. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving break. We'll be back on November 29th.
Good night.